Okay.
Just pass them back.
There you go.
Thank you.
A little lopsided here today. People always told me my presentations are all right. I'll be here all week. Okay, we going? Yeah, good. Okay. All right, how y'all doing? Welcome back to Teaching the Bible Cover to Cover. Again, I'm Michael Kotch. It's our 8th meeting already. Time flies and we're having fun. And today we're going to cover 2 women heroes of the Bible. Their stories are very similar, yet they happen in around the same time, sort of, but 2 different periods. But like I said, I've been teaching this also to 5th graders. The kids love these particular stories. I like them too. So we're going to hear about Judith and Esther. But let's start off with prayer. Father, Son, the Holy Spirit, amen. God, thank you for gathering us here today. Thank you for the fellowship of having us all together to hear your word. Please guide my teaching tonight to these people, and please guide these people so that they hear your word and it sinks into them. May they enjoy this teaching. May they learn a lot. May they use it in their lives. And please make it so that they have a safe trip home and a happy Thanksgiving, because we won't be meeting next week. You can come. I won't be here, but next week is Thanksgiving. All right. Now, I heard I was supposed to meet with the facilities director today after this, but I don't know if she's here. I thought that when we come, but now next week we're not here, of course, it's Thanksgiving. And the Thursday after, I thought we would be back in the prayer center, but I heard the Women's Guild has some kind of something. Okay, so I will let you know for sure, but tentatively, when we come back on December 5th, we'll be back here. Okay? And again, like each week, I'll send emails. If there's anybody not getting my emails or haven't gotten any from me at all, come and see me afterwards. I'll get your email address. Either just haven't got it from you, or you gave it to me and I couldn't read your writing and I typed it in wrong, and it just was, because there's a couple that just weren't going through. So if you haven't been receiving my emails after we're done, just stop by and I'll take yours down. Okay? We're going to start off like we always do and catch up to speed of where we're at. It kind of helps me get in gear too. I'm going to try to make them quicker each time, because each time I add more. So there's God and Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, big time jump. We're talking thousands of years. Noah, starting over with Noah, Tower of Babel, another very big time jump. And then after Tower of Babel, after time jump, we get to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob's 12 sons, who Jacob saved everybody from the famine and moved his 12 sons in Israel. They started off with 12. Big time jump, where the 12 multiplied to hundreds of thousands of Israelites just from those 12, at the minimum of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. Pharaoh comes in and says, who are these Israelites in my country? We don't really know them, and they might, cause problems for us. We turn them into slaves. 430 years pass. God says Moses to free them. He frees them, gets them out. They refuse to go to the land of Canaan because they don't think that God could clear the people out for them, so they're in the wilderness for a little while. Moses dies. Joshua takes over, and Joshua is the one that leads them into the land of Canaan, takes over, conquers the people, moves them out, moves them in. And then the people start rebelling against God. You're going to see this over and over and over again. So they would rebel, and he would set up the judges. They would rebel, and he would let people come in and conquer them. And when they would finally repent and cry out to God, he would send a judge to save them. And there's many of them. We covered 4 main, Deborah, Barak, Gideon, and Samson. And after the period of the judges, the people wanted kings, so God granted them to have kings. And it went Saul, David, Solomon, and then Solomon's son Rehoboam. And by this time, they're already causing a lot of problems, all the kings not listening to God. And as a result of some of Rehoboam's rebellion, the people turned on him, because the people said, hey, if you're easy on us, we'll follow you. If you're not, we won't. And he came back and said, I'm going to be as hard as I possibly can on you. You thought my dad was hard. He was nothing what I'm going to do to you. So 10 out of the 12 kingdoms decided not to follow him. They split. 10 formed the northern tribe, they kept the name Israel. The southern 2 that did decide to follow King Rehoboam was now called the tribe of Judah. And it was made up of Benjamin and Judah. So you had northern 10 tribes and the southern 2 tribes. Well, the people kept rebelling like they did now. In the past, when they would rebel, God would allow people to come in and take over, and then he'd raise judges. Well, they got even worse. Because not only were they turning their back on God, they were worshiping foreign gods. These are bad gods. These were, the people got into demon worship and child sacrifice and all kinds of really horrible stuff. And God kept saying, stop it, come back to me, stop doing this. He said, killing your own children, why would you follow a God like that? He said, as your God, not only would I never ask you to do that, I wouldn't even think of that. Like, why would you lead me to follow God like that? Well, they wanted to follow these gods. So God got a little more severe. Instead of just letting foreign nations come in and conquer them, they came in and conquered them and took them away. These are called the Babylonian exiles. Okay, the Assyrians came in, and first they conquered Israel. Israel was a little worse at the time than Judah, and they took them away to Assyria, the 10 tribes, most of the people. That was called, I guess, the Assyrian exile. And then King Nebuchadnezzar, this is important because it plays into tonight. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came in and conquered the southern tribe of Judah, took it away to Babylon. He installed his own king in there. His own king rebelled against him. He came back. And the first time, he just took all the nobility and the kind of high society, people with a lot of skills. Second time Nebuchadnezzar came back, he was mad because the guy he put in rebelled against him. He basically burned the city to the ground, smashed the walls, burned the houses, took everybody, all the treasures, except for the absolute poorest people. And so they were gone. Now again, God allows this to happen to the Israelites, not to destroy them, but to discipline them. He could have destroyed them, but they're still here. As evidence, the country of Israel is still here. He wanted to discipline them. When they repented and came back to him, he had mercy on them. And he changed the hearts of their captors to help them out. These kings, for no reason, these were enslaved people, decided, you know what, these Israelites are living here? We should let them go back to their own land. And anything they need to rebuild a temple that we burned down, we should give it to them and give them all of their riches back. And that's what kings did. They gave them everything because God moved their hearts. Okay, so the foreign kings of Assyria, Babylon, told the Israelite and the Judah people, you can go back, go ahead. Whatever help you need, we'll give you. So there's a man named Ezra that went back and rebuilt the Jewish temple. And the king gave him whatever supplies he needed, whatever manpower he needed. And then the king also let his own cupbearer, Nehemiah, who is Jewish, go back and rebuild the wall around the city. All right, now this is the southern kingdom, Judah. Northern kingdom is still kind of in disarray. So the southern kingdom, Judah, which includes Jerusalem, has their temple rebuilt and has the wall built around it. And 50,000, he allowed 50,000 people to come back, so they're living in there. We heard a little story, an interesting Bible story of Tobit, which was a story of this family headed by a man named Tobit who was living in Syria. He was an Israelite, and it was during the Syrian exile. And we heard about him and his story and how he prayed for God to take his life because he couldn't stand his blindness anymore. And another woman prayed to God to take her life because a demon was killing all of her husbands. And, God sent the angel of Raphael to save everything. So that was a little snippet of life in the exile about how God intervened and helped. Well, we're going to learn about 2 famous women heroes now who saved the Jewish race, basically, from extermination. All throughout history, people have tried to exterminate the Jewish people. Latest one that was real close was Hitler. But you hear all the time in the news, and the leaders have said it. It's not like it's made up. The countries around Israel, a lot of them are saying, we want to wipe you off the map. We want to exterminate you as a people. So All throughout history, there has been extermination threats. And we're going to hear about two. And we're going to hear how God used two women to save the people of Israel from an extermination threat. So, we are in the book of Judith. Now, we're in the book of Judith, and we're in the southern kingdom of Judah, and this is right shortly after the Jewish people returned to Judah. This is shortly after their captors, the king said, yeah, go back, Ezra, you can go back and rebuild the temple, and Nehemiah, you can go back and rebuild the wall, and some of the people could come back. So they just got finished doing this. They're still halfway in shambles, but okay, well, at least we got our temple back, and some of us are back, and we're kind of rebuilding. So it's during that period. And King Nebuchadnezzar was still around. Okay, now the first two times, this is important, the first two times, God allowed Nebuchadnezzar to come in and just knock them around and exile them because they're disobeying God, because they're worshiping foreign gods and demons and stuff. So God allowed, he said, Nebuchadnezzar is my hammer in my hand. I use him as a tool. Okay, and he allowed him to conquer them in exile. Nebuchadnezzar is coming back now, but now the Jewish people are following God. And God did not ordain this. So we're going to see the difference between when God allows something to happen and when somebody tries to do something on their own. You go against the will of God, it ain't going to work no matter who you are. Even Nebuchadnezzar, who had the most powerful force in the area. So, Jewish people are back in Judah, and during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar, they're back in Judah now. Nebuchadnezzar is ruling over the Assyrians in the city of Nineveh. At that time, another king from another kingdom, King Arphaxad, was ruling over the Medes in the city of Ecbatana. King Arphaxad built a huge fortified wall with gates around Ecbatana to protect them from Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the Assyrians, contacted all of the inhabitants of surrounding countries and said, listen, I'm going to go to war with this King Arphaxad of the Medes, and I want you all to join me. All right? You're going to join me. Well, nobody listened to him. And they didn't listen to him because they underestimated him. They thought, he's just one king of one kingdom. How powerful is he if he needs all of our help? So they all said, well, no, we're not going to join you. And they didn't send any troops. This threw Nebuchadnezzar into a rage. Okay? And he swore that he was going to take revenge on all the countries that refused to join him in the war against the Medes and King Arphaxad. So Nebuchadnezzar went on his own to war with this king of the Medes, and he routed them completely and took over all their cities. Right? So he conquered them without any help. Now, a few years later, this is stewing with Nebuchadnezzar, that I asked these other countries to come and help me in this battle, and they all refused me. You know, they thought lightly of me, like, well, what am I going to do if I say no? And he told his nobles of a secret plan to destroy all the countries and the lands that refused to join him in this war against King Arphaxad. Now, he put a man named Holofernes. He was the second guy in command over the Babylonian Empire. So you had Nebuchadnezzar and you had this guy named Holofernes. And he put him as the head general in charge of all of his army. And Holofernes led this charge to punish and conquer every city, every town, every country that disobeyed Nebuchadnezzar, who said, come and join me for war. So General Holofernes gathered 120,000 troops and 12,000 mounted archers and a huge supply line. Holofernes' force proceeded to destroy every land that they invaded. All the nations that encountered him surrendered unconditionally to him because they just couldn't withstand his force. He destroyed all of the worship and the gods of each land so that everybody that they conquered, he forced them to worship King Nebuchadnezzar as God. I don't know how well this is going to go over with God, okay? Because now they got their sights on Judah to conquer and force to worship Nebuchadnezzar as God. Now, when the Israelites who lived in Judah heard about this, they heard Holofernes is running around conquering everybody because they refused to join him in war, which Judah also refused to join him in war. They just got their stuff back together. Last thing they want to do is go join some foreign country in a war. You know, they're basically in shambles themselves. They're in great fear for themselves and their temple in Jerusalem. Now, they had only recently returned from exile, and all of the people of Judea were now reunited, and the vessels, the altar, and the temple had been purified from profanation. So they alerted all the other people, all the other Israelite people around them. They prepared for war. Now in the past, God allowed them to be overtaken and exiled by Nebuchadnezzar because they turned their back on God, they worshiped foreign gods, despite all his warnings, they ignored him. Now listen to the response to this threat. All of the men of Israel humbled themselves and cried unto God with great fervor. They girded themselves with sackcloth, sprinkled ashes on their heads, and laid prostrate in front of the temple. They cried out to God to not let their children be captured, their wives be seized, their city destroyed, and their sanctuary be profaned and mocked. And God heard their cry this time, and he heard their anguish, because they're faithful to him. The people throughout the land of Judah continued to fast and cry out to God in humility for many days to help them. All right. General Holofernes heard that the Israelites were fortifying their positions and preparing to go to war with them. They weren't going to attack them, but they were going to defend themselves instead of surrendering against Nebuchadnezzar's force headed by General Holofernes. So this General Holofernes went to the leader of this group of people called the Ammonites, and he said, well, tell me, what kind of people are these Israelites? We're going to go to war with them. We conquered everybody we met, but what do you know about these people? And this is what the leader of the Ammonites said. He said to General Holofernes, he told him all the history of the Israelite people. He then stressed that when the Israelites followed their God and they did not sin, they conquered whoever was in their way. However, when they sinned and did not follow their God, they became vulnerable and were easily defeated. He suggested that if the Israelites are presently sinning against their God, they can be defeated in battle. But if they're faithfully following their God, they should be left alone, because their God, our God, will shield them, and the Assyrian army will be mocked before everyone on earth. Now Holofernes replied that there is no God on earth besides King Nebuchadnezzar. He is the only God. And he predicted that Nebuchadnezzar's army, led by him, will wipe the Israelites from the face of the earth, and their God is not going to be able to save them from Holofernes' hand. He also swore that after his army killed every Israelite alive, so he's going on an extermination campaign to completely get rid of the Israelites. Last time, God allowed Nebuchadnezzar to discipline them. This time, Nebuchadnezzar is going rogue and wants to exterminate them. So he said, after I kill every man alive of the Israelites, he would kill the man that just told him not to attack the Israelites if they are following their God, because their God will shield the Israelites and defeat the army of Nebuchadnezzar. So he said, after I kill every single Israelite, and we see me kill every Israelite, and their God won't be able to save them, I'm going to kill you. And what he did was he tied this guy up. The guy's name was Achior, and he tied him up and he threw him. He delivered them to the Israelites. He said, you're going to be with them. If you think their God could protect you, you're going to die with them. And I'm going to make sure you die last. So the Israelites got him, and they untied him. They said, well, what happened? And this guy told them everything that General Holofernes was planning to do to him. So the response was, the Israelites fell on the ground and cried out to God to have mercy on them and help them from this arrogant ruler who had attacked them. Now Holofernes came with 170,000 infantrymen and 12,000 cavalry. So to give you perspective, it said when the kings that exiled the Jewish people away to Babylon, and to Assyria, when they allowed them to come back, they allowed 50,000 people to come back. And that was total, all right? Half of them are probably women, some were children, some were old men. So this Holofernes bringing 182,000 force against Israelites. Maybe he had 25,000 people that could fight. I don't know what kind of weapons they really had. Just kind of got back to their home. It's not like they had all their forges going, making weapons, preparing for war. But still, they were going to defend themselves as much as they could, but rely on God. So Holofernes, with this 182,000 force, surrounded the Israelite city of Bethulia and cut off the water supply. They figured, we cut off the water, eventually they'll just dehydrate, and we could just walk in and take them over without even much fighting, because what are they going to do without water? The city was cut off from water for 40 days, and eventually they ran out of water. People were fainting in the streets due to weakness. The people of the city went to their leader Uzziah. They demanded that the city surrender to Holofernes to prevent them from dying from dehydration. Uzziah told them they will wait 5 more days to see if God will save them. And if God doesn't save them in 5 days, then we'll surrender to Holofernes and to Nebuchadnezzar. Let me take a sip. I can't talk for an hour straight without getting something to drink. My throat dries out. Okay, good. Now, during all this, there was a woman in this city named Judith. Now, Judith was a widow. She was married, and her husband, his name was Manasseh. And he died 3 years earlier of heat stroke while working in the fields. He was harvesting barley. He got heat stroke and he died. Now, Judith was an exceedingly beautiful woman. But aside from that, she feared God greatly and she worshiped him daily. And because of this, nobody in the whole town had anything bad to say about her. Everybody liked her. Judith was very upset that Uzziah and the other leaders of their people swore an oath that unless God helps them within 5 days, they will surrender the city to their enemies. She said, who were they to put Almighty God to a test like that? She also said that you got to understand, we're not worshiping idols and false gods like the Israelites did in the past. That's why God allowed us to be conquered. We're obedient now. We're following him. Maybe this is just a test of our faith to see if we'll follow him when things are tough. Again, whenever you read the Bible or hear anything about Bob, you want to think, is there anything I could apply to this to my own life? Because it's meant for us to learn. So she said, maybe it's a test to see if we'll follow him even when times are tough and not run away. It's a faith test. Now, she called on the people to be a good example for their kindred. And she said they need to praise God now, worship and give thanks to God during this time of testing instead of running away and giving in. Now, Uzziah, their leader, said that Judith was correct in everything that she said. He declared she's a very wise woman and her wisdom had been recognized by others on various occasions. However, he said, the people were so thirsty that they forced me to make this oath, and I can't break it. Once I make an oath, I can't break it. I didn't want to do this, but people were like passing out from dehydration and kind of ganged up on me. Judith replied to him that she will do a deed that will go down in Israelite history. I guess she did because we're reading about her now. I guess it came true. She told Uzziah and the people that she will leave the city tonight, and within the days remaining in which they agreed to surrender the city. Remember, they made this oath that if God doesn't save them 5 days, we're going to surrender. So I don't know how much time they had left, but she said, okay, keep that 5-day thing. I'm going to do something, and God's going to save us within this 5-day period. And she said, within that 5 days, what'd she say? That you won't have to surrender the city because God will deliver them through my hand. But she wouldn't tell them what she was going to do until she did it. So they all agreed, and they asked God to bless her, and they prayed for her, and they prayed to God to help them. They said, we don't know what you're going to do, but whatever you do, just go and do it, because we have no options. Now Judith cried out to God to hear her, a widow, and she prayed to God, you are God, and whatever you plan comes to pass. The Assyrians are here, a huge force that prides himself in their own power and their weapons. They do not know you, the Lord our God. Shatter their armies with your might. They plan to defile your temple. Send your fury upon these prideful people. Give me, a widow, strength to carry out your plan. And this is what she prays to him. Interesting. She prays, let me use deceit to defeat them. You are the God of the lonely, the helper of the weak. Please heal my prayer to defeat them through the deceit of my lips. That's her prayer. So that everyone knows that you and you alone are God. She said, God, use me to defeat them, and let me use deceit to defeat them. I never heard of a prayer like that. That's what she prayed. So as soon as she got done praying, she went to work dressing herself up as beautifully as she could in order to entice any man who would look at her. And remember, she was exceedingly beautiful. So she's already a stunning woman, and she did whatever she could to make herself look as attractive as possible. She was blessed by the elders of the city, and then she left the city on her mission. As she walked across the valley, she was apprehended by the Assyrian patrol. This is the enemy. This is Holofernes' group. She told them that she was Hebrew, and she was escaping the city because it was about to be captured by the Assyrians. And she told them she wants to speak to the general because she wants to show him a secret way into the city to minimize loss of life. She said, look, I know you guys are going to defeat our city. I know there's going to be a battle. Many people are going to get killed. Maybe even some of your guys are going to get killed. So I want to spare everybody from that. I know you're going to defeat us. Let me talk to your general. I'll tell you secret way in so you can do it quickly, and there might be just a minimal loss of life because you're going to do it anyways. And they were stunned by her beauty, so they said, okay, so they brought her to his general Holofernes. A crowd gathered as she was being brought to the tent of Holofernes, and the entire crowd was mesmerized by her beauty. General Holofernes came out of his tent to see who was being brought to him by the guards. When he saw her, how pretty she was, this is what he said. "Do not fear, I've never harmed anyone who chose to serve King Nebuchadnezzar, king of the entire earth. Your people brought their own destruction on themselves by insulting me, because they wouldn't join him when he requested them to go to war with him. Feel free to tell me why you have fled from them and came to serve us. Do not worry, no harm will come to you." Now Judith replied that if Holofernes followed her instructions, he would be successful in his plans. Then she swore by, here's some of the deceit that comes in. She swore by the life of King Nebuchadnezzar, like he was God. "I swear by Nebuchadnezzar." She knows he's not God, okay? So she swears by Nebuchadnezzar, who she says, not only king of all the people of the earth, but even ruler of all the animals of the world, to follow, her plan. And she said, "And General Holofernes, the whole world knows, like everybody knows, you're the most brilliant military strategist that ever lived." Flattery, okay? She's beautiful too. It's like, oh. So then she admitted that, yeah, what you heard earlier about the Israelites is true. When God's people follow him, he shields them, and they're notable, and they're not able to be defeated. However, she said that her people have been sinning lately against God, and it's now their time to be punished for it. During the siege, she claimed that they were eating and drinking all the food and drink forbidden by God to consume. When she learned about this, she fled from them. Then she said, if you take me in, what I want to do is I'm going to go out every night and pray to my God, because he's mad at our people because they're eating all this forbidden food and they're not following him. So every night in your camp, I'm going to go out and pray to him and for him to give me a signal. Because when they're not sinning, we can't defeat them, but he's going to give me a signal when they are sinning. And I'll tell you, and that's when you attack. Because our people are easily defeated when they sin against God. So he said, okay. And she said, and listen, and when you defeat these Israelites, you could set up your own throne right in the heart of Jerusalem, because you took the city. Pride. Yeah, I'm the best general ever. I didn't even think of that. Get my own throne? Yeah, okay. So the words of Judith and her stunning beauty pleased General Holofernes and all the attendants, and they agreed to follow her plan. Now every night for 3 days, Judith would go out to the valley of Bethulia and pray to God to direct her to getting victory for her people, Israelites. So she would go out and pray to God, God, please show me what to do to save my people. The general thought every night she was going out to pray to God to say, hey God, give me a signal when they're sinning so that we could attack them, defeat them, because I know you want them to be punished. So every night she'd go out and pray, and that's what he thought she was praying for. This is important because it comes in later. On the fourth day, now remember she had 5 days, and the people were going to surrender. On the fourth day, General Holofernes held a banquet for his servants alone with no officers invited. Holofernes sent an assistant to Judith, inviting her to come and eat and drink with him, because he had plans to seduce her. Yeah. Judith accepted his invitation. Judith dressed beautifully, and General Holofernes was enslaved by her beauty. He had been hoping to be with her since the moment he met her. Now he encouraged her to drink with him, and she did. Holofernes was so charmed by her beauty, and that she was so into him and thought that he was the best general and he's going to have his own throne, that he drank more wine than he ever did in his whole life. So now he's hammered, okay? And she's alone in the tent with him. He sent the other, you guys go away, I'm with Judith. So he's in charge, sent everybody else away. So it's him and Judith in the tent, and he's hammered. So it became very late, and the servants of General Holofernes left for their tents. Judith was alone in a tent with General Holofernes. She prayed to God, asking him to guide her in exalting Jerusalem and in defeating the enemies that rose against them. She then took the sword of General Holofernes and cut off his head with it. I don't know if he was passed out or but he was drank more wine than he ever did in his whole life, so he was out of it, and she took his sword and chopped off his head. She hid his head she hid the body in a canopy. She rolled it up, and then she took his head and put in one of her bags. And she went out with her handmaid out in the field. Now they thought she was going out to pray, like she did every night, to pray to God to give me a signal when it's time to attack. So she said, I'm going to go out to pray with my handmaid. She was going out to escape back to her people, and she had Holofernes' head in a bag. She returned to her hometown of Bethulia. All the people of the city came out to see if Judith's plan was successful. Judith praised God and said that he showed mercy on the house of Israel and shattered its enemies. She then took out the head of General Holofernes and showed it to the crowd, claiming that God struck their second in command, who they thought was a god themselves, struck him down through the hand of a woman. Now everybody bowed down and prayed to God and thanked him, and also blessed Judith for what she did. Now Judith had a plan, and I'm sure it was given to her by God. She said, this is what we're going to do. Hang the head of General Holofernes on a wall. When the sun rises, all of our soldiers will grab their weapons and rush out of our city as if we're going to attack the enemy. When they see this, they'll rush to alert their generals. When they do not find General Holofernes, they'll panic and flee. We will pursue them and strike them down as they flee. Now, I say God probably gave her to us because this is exactly what happened. She gave basically a prophecy. This is what we're going to do. This is what's going to happen. This is exactly what happened. This is what they did. When the Israelites ran at them, ran out of their tents, it looked like this force was attacking them. The soldiers saw and they went to the general's tents to alert them. They're coming out to fight. They're coming to attack us. General Holofernes' aide went in his tent to wake up General Holofernes. When he went in there, he found Holofernes' dead body with his head cut off, and he didn't find Judith. He came out screaming that they were tricked by Hebrew women, and General Holofernes is dead on the ground, headless. Everybody panicked and broke rank. Now you've got to remember back then, they thought that their leaders were gods. They thought Nebuchadnezzar was a god. They thought Holofernes was probably a god. So, when somebody comes up and beats your god up and cuts his head off, then it must be a stronger god. So that's why, even though, because this happened before in the Bible too, you kill the leader who they think is a god, the people panic. They just scatter, even if they might have superior numbers. This is what they did. So everybody in camp panicked and broke rank. They scattered and fled in all directions. The Israelite army chased them and attacked them. When people from the surrounding territories, who were Israelites, but also who General Holofernes and Nebuchadnezzar was trying to punish, when they saw what was happening, they joined the Israelites in attacking the Assyrians who were now fleeing. Then the Assyrian army was soundly defeated. There was great celebration, and Judith was honored throughout the land for God using her to spare her people from extermination. She lived to be 105 years old, and her fame increased throughout the land because of her deeds until the time of her death. Isn't that a nice story? Sort of? I like it. I mean, it's death in it, but okay. Now, this next story is Esther. Somewhat similar, but it's got its own twist. And they're totally different stories that come at different times, but similar events, But this one's really neat. It's almost like a fairy tale one. And you'll see how when we get into it. It's true. It's in the Bible. It's not like it's a made-up story. So now we're in the book of Esther. And at this point, the Israelites were ruled by King Ahasuerus of the kingdom of Media Persia, which encompassed 127 provinces ranging from India to Ethiopia. This is during one of the exiles. At first, Nebuchadnezzar exiled them 3 different times total. But at one point, one of the kingdoms just transitioned from the kingdom of Babylon to the kingdom of Media Persia over time. All right, so this is the Media Persia kingdom. But the Israelites are still living there. And they've been living there since one of the exiles. So there's this king named King Ahasuerus, who's the king of the Media Persian Empire. And he had this big party. And he invited the army, the princes, the governors, the kingdom lasted for many days. The parties go on for weeks. So after a week of partying and drinking and whatever, the king got this idea. I'm going to bring my queen out and show off to everybody how pretty she is. They're going to think it's awesome because I got a hot wife who's a queen. So her name is Queen Vashti. Hey, Queen Vashti, come on out here. Show everybody how good looking you are. No. What do you mean no? Come on out. I'm not coming. She refused to come. She got mad. Well, I guess I would too. Let all these guys look at you, and everybody's drunk and everything. So he got mad. He didn't know what to do. So he talked to his consultants and stuff. And they got panicky. They said, listen, king, you got to do something about this. Because you're the king. And if your wife don't listen to you, none of our wives are going to listen to us. They're going to all follow that example. We'll tell them to do whatever. And they'll be like, we don't have to. Queen Vashti didn't have to. You got to do something about this. You need to get a new queen or something. We're all in trouble if you let this go. He goes, yeah, okay, that's a good idea. So The King Ahasuerus removed Queen Vashti's title as being queen, and she's no longer queen. So they said, what you should do is have, and this is almost Cinderella-like. Now again, this happened like 3,000 years ago, so it wasn't like this copied off of Cinderella. I'm wondering how much Cinderella might have copied off of this story. So they said, King, you should probably have a big ball and invite all of the single maidens from all the kingdom to the ball. And, let them stay with you for a while, and you get to, spend time with them, pick out which one you like the most, and that could be the new queen. So that's a good idea. So at the time this is all going on, there was a good Jewish man who lived in this Medo-Persian kingdom who was in exile. His name was Mordecai. Now it shows you how long they've been there. They've been there for a little while. So he's been living in this kingdom in exile. How his family got there, his great-grandfather was brought by Nebuchadnezzar to this kingdom. Because they've been there for a little while. His great-grandfather was exiled, and then everyone after that was born there. So although he's a Jew living there, he was born in this kingdom. Or he wasn't born and brought there later. Mordecai was raising up a young woman named Esther. Now Esther's parents died when she was young, both the mother and father. Mordecai was a much older cousin of King Esther, and he adopted her, and he raised her like this was his own daughter, because he was family and she had no parents. So Mordecai basically became her adopted father. Now she's very beautiful. Like Judith, Esther is very beautiful. And when the king's order was sent out to bring the beautiful women to the palace to select a new queen, Esther, along with all the other single women, was brought to the king's palace to do this. Now Esther was the nicest and the most beautiful of all the women brought to the king's palace. And over time, she became a favorite of King Ahasuerus' house and eventually made her queen. So now she's Queen Esther. And she replaced Queen Vashti, who disobeyed him. Now, while this is all happening, her father Mordecai loved her. So he'd go by the palace of the king and just try to find out what's going on with my daughter. She's in there. I know they're having this big, I don't know exactly what's going on. So he would go by to see if he get any news, what's happening with my daughter. And one day, while he was out there, first of all, Esther didn't tell anybody that she was Jewish. And they might not know that because, again, this is a fourth generation. So she was born there. It's not like she was exiled there. She had an accent. I mean, she was born speaking their language and everything, but she had a Jewish background. And Mordecai told her, don't tell anybody that you're Jewish. It might cause you problems. So she didn't. So one day when Mordecai was, hanging around the castle looking to see what might be going on with his daughter Esther, he was near two guards and he overheard them talking that they were mad at the king and they're going to try to kill him. Well, he reported this to his daughter Esther, who's now the queen. And she reported it to the king, and the guards got these two men, and this Mordecai may have saved the king's life. So in this kingdom, as I'm going through this, doing this Bible teaching, there's a lot of stuff that comes up with the number two guy. Like we just heard Holfrings was the number two guy, and in other things we heard Joseph was the number two guy. There's a lot with the number two guy. In this kingdom, King Ahasuerus is the king, and he promoted this guy as number two. Right behind him, his name was Haman. And he promoted Haman to be second in charge of the kingdom behind him. Now, there is a law, a rule, I don't know if Haman made it up, he probably did, knowing what kind of guy he is, and you'll see, that anybody that Haman walked by had to bow down to him, because he was so great. And Mordecai wouldn't do this. And he got enraged with him, and he said, I'm not going to bow down to you. I'm sorry, but he said, I'm a Jew. He told Esther, don't tell people that you're Jewish, but he revealed, he said, I'm a Jew, and I'm sorry, but we only bow down to God. We don't bow down to men. Well, Haman went into a fit, and he decided that not only would he kill Mordecai for not bowing down to him when he walked by him, but he would kill every Jewish person alive in the kingdom, get another extermination. Now, Haman went to the king, he's number two, and he said, King, I want to talk to you about something. Sure, Haman, come on in. And he said, there are a group of people living in this kingdom, they're called the Jews. They're not following your laws and commands, and I think it would be in best interest in the kingdom if they all be destroyed. And the king said, do whatever you think is right with them. So a letter was sent out by Haman to all the officials of the kingdom that on December 13th, all the Jews in the kingdom were to be killed, and basically everybody's going to be exterminated. Now Mordecai heard about this, And he was, of course, extremely upset. And he told his daughter, now Queen Esther, that Haman is planning to kill all the Jewish people in the kingdom, and even you, because you're Jewish. And he said, Esther, you have to do something. You know, you're the queen, that you have to do something. He said, and Esther, how do you not know that God did not put you in this position just for this moment? You know? So, Queen Esther sent a message to all the Jews in the kingdom to fast for 3 days. Don't eat, don't drink anything, just pray to God continually. And they did. And then Queen Esther came up with a plan of how to save the Jewish people. So Queen Esther went to the king and asked if a banquet could be held and make sure that Haman was there. And the king agreed. And Haman was happy that he was invited to this banquet. Hey, the king invited me to a banquet. It's probably for me. And he was later talking to his wife about this. What a nice couple this Haman and his wife is. So Haman's going to kill all the Jews, and the king invites him to this banquet. And he goes home and he tells his wife, hey, guess what? I got invited to the king's banquet. And she goes, hey, that's great. Hey, I got a good idea. Remember that guy Mordecai wouldn't bow down to you? Yeah. At the banquet, why don't you build a 75-foot pole and hang him in front of everybody at the banquet? Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. What a banquet, huh? I don't want to go to that banquet. So he's going to build a 75-foot pole and hang Mordecai at the banquet because he wouldn't bow down to him. Now, the night before the banquet, the king couldn't sleep. And he asked his servants to read, I can't sleep. Do me a favor. Go get the record book of everything that happened in the kingdom lately. Read to me, recent events that happened. I haven't read it lately. So they read to him that, this happened, that happened. And by the way, this guy named Mordecai discovered that 2 of your servants were going to try to kill you. And he reported it and stopped them, and it might have saved your life. The king said, well, what was done to reward Mordecai for doing that for me? And they said, as far as we know, nothing. Oh, okay. So in the morning, the king called in Haman, and who just got finished building. He just said he probably didn't do it. He probably had ordered people to build a 75-foot pole outside this banquet to hang Mordecai. So the king called in Haman and said, listen, I want to talk to you. What do you think I should do for a man that I want to honor? Well, Haman thought he was talking about him. Well, he must be talking about me. Well, what I think you should do, king, is put your royal robes on the guy and put your crown on the guy and put the guy on your royal horse and lead him through town and have somebody saying, this is what the king does to a man he wants to honor. And the king said, I like that. You go do that for Mordecai because he saved my life. And this is right after he just got finished building the 75-foot pole to hang him. Okay. And that's what he did. Haman was terrified, but he got Mordecai and he put the king's robes on him, put the king's crown on him, put him on the king's horse, led him all through town, yelled out to everybody, this is what the king does for a God he wants to honor. As soon as he came back, he ran. Now he's petrified, because he's like, oh my God, I got the pole built up to hang him, and the king's honoring him now. So now comes the night of the banquet. They do have this banquet. And Esther prayed for courage, because she didn't know how this was going to go. And she also wasn't probably aware that the whole thing happened with Mordecai. And, so she's going on faith that God was going to somehow get her through this. And she said, can I talk to you, king? And he said, yeah. And she told the king that Haman was going to kill everybody, all the Jews in the kingdom. And she said, even me, because I'm a Jew. And she said, my father Mordecai, he's a Jew. He's going to kill Mordecai too? Yeah, he's a Jew. Oh. And the king got enraged at Haman. And then somebody said to him, and you know what, king? That Haman just built a pole. He's going to hang Mordecai. Really? Well, go hang Haman on that. King hung Haman on it, And the king called off they found out about the orders to kill all the Jews. He sent immediate messages, stop, don't touch the Jews. They're okay. Don't. So they stopped this extermination event that's supposed to happen on December 13th. Because Mordecai saved the king's life, he was promoted to a very powerful position in the kingdom and was loved by everybody in the land. Isn't that like a kind of Disney story? I mean, they never hung anybody in Cinderella, but aside from that, it was pretty good. Well, that's it for tonight, okay? That's it for tonight. Now, I do believe, like I said, next week we're off. I hope you all have a blessed and happy Thanksgiving. When we come back on December 5th, Thursday, I think we're going to be in here. It's going to be a little, not different, but we're going to learn about Job, okay? And one of the neat things we're going to learn about Job is I wrote a book about Job. And I'm going to basically teach this book. It's not a different spin on it, but the point of it is Job was a man who God himself said was the most righteous guy on earth, okay? He was the pinnacle of human righteousness by itself. But when enough pressure was on him, human righteousness alone, the most human righteousness by itself, he caved in. And the point is, ever since Jesus came, if we follow Jesus, the Bible's clear. When we accept Jesus and follow him, the Holy Spirit lives in us. We have some power and strength in us with the Holy Spirit in us because because of what Christ did, that the most righteous guy in the whole world did not have in the Old Testament. He needed Jesus, he didn't have him. We have him. Okay, and I'm going to show you how that played out. Okay, we have something today, all of us, if we follow God, that the most righteous guy in the world did not have. And we have strength that he didn't have. Okay, so that's it. If you have any questions, you can stop up afterwards. God bless you all. Thank you for coming. Hope you have a nice Thanksgiving. Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, my wife's going to Texas with my daughter to a soccer tournament, so it's me and my 15-year-old son. We're just going to be hanging out like two bachelors. We're going to an arcade. We're going to be eating pizza. We're going to be watching movies. I think I'm taking them to Kalahari water slide. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. So meet back here Thursday, December 5th. If you haven't been receiving emails from me, stop by. I'll take your email address down now because somehow I missed it or it just wasn't going through or whatever, because I give announcements when things change or whatever, so you're not caught off guard. You too. Take care, everybody.
Pages from last week. Do you ever bring the old ones?
I don't have last week's. They are, I'll tell you what, they're actually over in the...
Everyone's doing good. How about yours?
Yeah, I will. They're actually over in the Paris. If you go, walk straight to the back, there's like a bar-looking thing, and a cabinet underneath have all of them in there.
I'll help myself.
Yeah, and just take whatever one you want.
Right.
Yeah.
I lost the thought. I don't know.
That's okay. Let me shut this off here. You're welcome.